Welcome everyone to another episode of the Love Talks. I'm Dr. Astera Brylka and I'm a psychologist and love and relationship consultant. In my podcast, my guests and I talk about relationships, marriages, dating, love, and other important life topics. Today, I want to talk about ghosting. Those of you that have been ghosted by someone that you have dated, or even had a committed relationship that lasted for a while, those of you will know exactly what ghosting means and how it feels to be ghosted. For those that have not yet experienced ghosting, I'm explaining now that ghosting happens when someone that you are seeing ends the relationship that you two have by cutting off all sort of communication with you, without giving you any explanation or closure. Ghosting is like an ultimate silent treatment that leaves you in a limbo of not knowing what has really happened. While ghosting is usually chosen as the means for ending a rather new relationship, such as dating, which is at a very early stage, or flirtation, ghosting is not reserved just for these short-term relations only. Ghosting can be used to end even a long-term, committed relationship. These days, this is unfortunately not that unusual anymore. Those that ghost do not bother to let you know that they are no longer interested in you and that they are moving on. But they simply block you on social media or on their phone, and they are gone from your life for good, at least for some time, like a few months or a year, because some ghosts may come back all of a sudden, like nothing happened, but only when it is convenient for them. These days it is quite possible that the majority of you that are listening to this episode today have been ghosted at least once. While ghosting has always existed, and it was known much before the onset of social media, it was much less common in the past, like 15 or 20 years ago, than it is today. And there are different reasons for that. If you think about dating, or in general, about meeting new people, 15 or 20 years ago, there were no dating apps and social media like Facebook were only taking off the ground at that time. People used to meet others, including their new romantic interests, almost exclusively through their mutual friends or family, or at work, or through other social circles that they were part of. That means that at that time people thought twice, or even more times, whether ghosting someone that they were dating or had already a committed relationship with was really a good idea. First of all, as they and their romantic interest had the same social networks, the same social circles, ghosting did not guarantee that the ghost would not bump into their ghosted ex-partner at some point soon. So, simply speaking, at that time, ghosting wasn't really an efficient means of severing all ties with someone and to disappear without any consequences. This wasn't really the case. Secondly, as the ghost and the one that was ghosted had mutual friends or colleagues, that one who ghosted would quite quickly get an appropriate label for what they did within their social circles. She or he would become known as someone unreliable, a liar that uses women or men as they please for their own benefit, or someone that is just not worth the trust. So there used to be social consequences of ghosting at that time. By ghosting someone, the ghost was putting himself or herself in a disadvantaged position in their social circles. After all, being known as someone who uses another person only for entertainment, under the false pretenses of having a committed relationship with them, was decreasing the ghost's chances of repeating this process again. When you know that Mr. X or Miss X like ghosting others, you would be much more guarded with them than without having this knowledge. And you would think multiple times whether investing emotionally or time-wise into a relationship with a ghost is in your best interest. So this element of social control made ghosting in the past a very risky behavior to use. These days, however, this is no longer a problem. With the expansion of all the dating apps that we have today, with people meeting and looking for someone to date online on various social platforms, including those ones that are considered strictly to be business tools, there are virtually no consequences for ghosting others. In 1 second you can block someone who can be hundreds or thousands miles away from you, and nothing happens. Even if you two have some mutual online friends or connections, no one really brags publicly about being ghosted on social media. And if that happens, it usually stays between the ghost and the ghosted one. So no one else knows that something like that happened and why it happened. That means that these days, ghosts can very easily move on and find someone else to date and ghost again if they wish to do so. There is no element of social control anymore. There are no consequences for the ghost for ghosting. And that means that ghosting someone met online, even if we took the relationship to the real world for a while, is as simple as clicking the block button. Of course, no consequences means that there are no consequences for the ghost, because there are quite a lot of consequences for the ghosted person, and I will talk about it a bit later. Another reason for why ghosting has become so spread these days is that when we meet someone online, we do not always tend to think of them as being friends that are equal to those friends that we have met somewhere in person in the real world. Somehow, many people do not feel that attached to those people met online as they feel to those that they meet in person. Also, when you meet someone online, you are not really trusting them fully either, neither at the beginning nor later. And this is actually a good thing, because it is a precaution that we take not to be scammed on the internet. But this also means that for those men and women that ghost others, it is much easier to do the ghosting to the person that they met online than to the person that they have met in real life. The internet brings together people from different parts of the country or even different parts of the world at one touch of the button today. But at the same time, the internet is neither promoting nor supporting the same feelings of closeness that the majority of us feel when we meet someone in person. So, what is the mechanism behind ghosting? Who ghosts others? Well, someone would say that ghosting is done by people that are simply bad and mean, and they don't respect others at all. But this would be a simplification of a complex mechanism. In fact, ghosting reflects the very core traits of the narcissistic personality disorder. But what exactly narcissistic personality is about? Not everyone is familiar with this term. Some could have heard something about narcissism, but not necessarily the correct information. As these days the term narcissism is quite trendy, and you can find a lot of materials on the internet about it, you most likely have heard the word narcissism or a narcissist before. But not all information that you can reach out there are correct. So, to give you a better understanding what the narcissistic personality disorder is about, I will briefly tell you how the person that has the narcissistic personality disorder will be characterized by. So the first thing is that you can see a long-term pattern of exaggerated feelings of self-importance. And this is something that is pretty often referred to as persistent grandiosity. You can see that in the acting, in the behavior of a narcissist. Also, there is an excessive need for admiration. All narcissists want to be admired. And another thing is that narcissists lack of empathy for other people. And these are the very, very core traits of the narcissistic personality disorder. And this is how the narcissistic personality disorder is defined. So when you think about a narcissist and how they act and behave on a daily basis, you will notice the following cues. And just to make it clear, you will see those cues either quite early on when interacting with the narcissist, or it may take some time for you to realize what is going on. This all depends where on the narcissistic spectrum the particular narcissist is, or to say in other words, how severe his or her disorder is. So pay attention to the following behaviors if you are dating someone or are already in a committed relationship with them. So the first thing is that a narcissist, he or she, has a grandiose sense of self-importance. And this can manifest as exaggerating own achievements and talents, or expecting to be recognized as superior to others without any achievements or merit at all to claim such a superiority. Then, they are preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, or beauty. Many narcissists not only fantasize about it, but they at some point become quite convinced that they are actually the most successful, the most powerful, and the most beautiful people in the world. Also, they believe that they are special and unique, and henceforth they should associate only with high-status people or high-status institutions. Narcissists require excessive admiration, even if they do not do anything that would justify it. Also, they have a sense of entitlement, and this can be shown either as having unreasonable expectations of being treated favorably, or they can expect others to automatically comply with their orders. I use the word orders intentionally, because a narcissist does not ask about something. They don't ask people for favors, or they don't politely or kindly ask people to do something for them. They order people to do so. Narcissists exploit others, which means that they take advantage of other people that are in some way useful to them to achieve their own goals. If someone is not viewed as useful for achieving their own goals, the narcissist will not be very interested in interacting with this person. Narcissists also lack empathy. And here it does not mean that they are completely unable to identify what other people need or feel, but it is about their unwillingness to do so. The narcissists simply don't care. Quite typical sentences that you can hear from a narcissist when someone tells them about how they feel in relation to what the narcissist did or said to them is, well, why would I care? Or it can be, it does not concern me. Or, I'm completely not interested in it. Also, they are often envious of others, or they believe that others are envious of them. That's quite the typical trait of a narcissist. And last but not least, they often show arrogant behaviors or attitudes, and they don't need for that a very strong trigger. Quite often it can be something really small, but triggers them to show how arrogant and inconsiderate to others they are. If you recognize any 5 behavior from this list that I have just presented in your boyfriend's or girlfriend's behavior, you can be pretty much sure that you are dealing with a narcissist. And this also means that you have much higher chances to be ghosted by someone like that than if you were dating a person who is not a narcissist. So what is it about narcissism and ghosting? What these two have in common? If you look deep into narcissism, you will realize that the core of this disorder is made of an intense fear of abandonment. Narcissists were often abandoned as children, constantly demeaned, and rejected by their mothers or any other primary caregiver. They were devaluated as human beings from very early on in their lives. Because this fear of abandonment is so deeply hidden and buried inside the true self of a narcissist, the narcissist denies having this fear, but at the same time, they have a very strong drive to compensate for this fear. And to do so, narcissists develop grandiosity, and this is this outer shell that is visible when we interact with them. But deep inside, narcissists are scared and fearful, and also very, very afraid of being controlled by others. So when narcissists ghost someone, their obsession of being in control and having power over someone is fulfilled. By ghosting, they maintain the power over the whole situation. Also, when they opt out from telling openly to their partner that they are no longer interested in dating them, or that they want their way out of the relationship, narcissists do not have to face confrontation. We all know that breakups are not nice situations, and they often do not go smoothly. The abandoned partner may demand explanations, they can argue, they can be confrontational, and show a lot of emotions from sadness to anger. And this is exactly what the narcissist wants to avoid. Narcissists cannot tolerate or respect the emotions of other people, and they hardly ever show their own emotions. They consider the emotions displayed by others as unnecessary nuisance and a sign of weakness. Narcissists view people who show emotions with disgust, and they don't want to deal with them. Ghosting allows a narcissist to avoid the hassle, as simply as that. Also, remember that narcissists treat people instrumentally. They use others as means to get what they want. If a narcissist realizes that they no longer have any benefit from the person that they are dating, whether it is about sex or money or something else, they will leave without a blink of an eye. For many, it can be hard to believe that leaving someone without a word of explanation, or even without actually letting them know that they have been dumped, comes to a narcissist so easily. But it does. Ghosting is extremely easy for narcissists because they lack empathy, or the willingness to use it, as I have said before. And they have no concern for others whatsoever. As long as they feel comfortable themselves, narcissists do not care how the other person will feel after being ghosted. Dealing with the breakup and the mess that they leave behind is not the narcissist's problem. They do not consider it as such. The whole responsibility of dealing with what has happened, which is being completely ignored all of the sudden, and having received the ultimate silent treatment, as ghosting is often called, is on the one who was ghosted. And there is a lot to deal with, I can tell you. Ghosting is literally the most cruel way of ending a relationship, even a short one, not to mention a long-term one, as it just leaves the other person without any answers. There is no closure, and in fact, it may take a while to realize that you have been dumped in the first place. And that is not surprising. After all, if you dated someone for months, or was in a real, or that is what you thought it was, committed relationship with them, and you thought that he or she cared about you, being ghosted comes as a shock. And recovering from this shock takes a good while. What is ironic in ghosting is that the person who was ghosted is actually often concerned about the safety of the ghost. They ask themselves, maybe something has happened to him or her. Maybe they had an accident and cannot reach out to me. Or even, maybe they have died. This is what comes first to mind. While the ghost has already happily moved on, quite often to pursue another target, the ghosted partner is spending their time and energy on thinking whether the ghost is all right and well. This is how devious ghosting really is. Ghosting is devastating to the self-esteem and mental health of those that have been ghosted. For many, being ghosted means and feels like being disrespected and used. And in the end, disposed like a piece of rubbish. If the relationship with the ghost was not yet that serious, these challenging feelings may not be that intense, and it can be relatively quite easy to move on after some time after the ghosting. But if you have known the ghost for a while, you have dated him or her for an extended period of time, maybe even had regular sex with them, then being ghosted can be very traumatic. Ghosting is always a rejection, like an ultimate one. The one who ghosted you didn't find you worthy enough of ending the relationship that you two had in a civil manner. They did not see you as deserving of getting a proper closure that would allow you to work on this loss and eventually move on. This can feel good and makes your self-esteem to plunge. And if it's not the first time that you have been ghosted, then your self-esteem has been already low before the recent ghosting. In this case, another rejection, especially so cruel and inconsiderate as done through ghosting, is going to be very painful and extremely difficult for you to deal with. Another thing is that when you have been ghosted, you don't know how to react to what has happened. By being ghosted, you were in fact deprived of your right to react in some way to being dumped. And now you cannot do anything. You may even feel that this is not happening for real, and that this is just sort of a nightmare that will go away. But it doesn't. Days, weeks, and months are passing by, and you still don't know what has really happened. Also, you not only question the relationship that you had with the ghost. Was it real? Was it even a relationship? Or was it just a thing and I have not noticed that? Ghosting causes you to question yourself and your own judgments. You start questioning yourself whether you should have seen it coming. What you could have done to avoid this. You lose trust in yourself. You lose trust in your choices and also in your perception of reality. After all, it looks that someone was faking a relationship with you for quite a while, and you have not realized it in time. So you start blaming yourself that this is actually your fault. This is what ghosting leaves behind. And just one more thing to mention here, to make it clear what ghosting is and what isn't. So if you cease all communication with a ghost, that for instance has reappeared in your life, or you have had with them an on and off relationship over an extended period of time, what happens if you cease all communication with them at some point? Is this ghosting? Have you become a ghost yourself by doing so? No, you haven't. Ceasing all communication with someone that has ghosted you, blocking them on your social media, or not responding to their emails, is not ghosting. And I cannot stress this enough. This is not ghosting. This is a thing that every normal person would do in such a situation. And by normal, I mean someone that is mature emotionally and has self-respect. To say even more, cutting the ghost off is just a self-preservation instinct. And having self-preservation instinct is necessary to survive. When you stop communicating with the ghost, this is not ghosting the ghost. This is simply escaping an unsafe or abusive relation that you have had with them. By ceasing all communication with the ghost, and by cutting them off from any source of information about you and what is going on in your life, like blocking them on your social media, you keep yourself emotionally and sometimes even physically safe. And this is your right as a human being, to keep yourself safe. And of course, I know that leaving the ghost behind, especially when they so eagerly come back, once in a while, is easier said than done. But this is the best thing that you can do to yourself when someone has ghosted you. Having the hope that the ghost has learned something, that they have realized that what they have done to you was wrong, is just a wishful thinking. Those who ghost others, they have done that before, they have done that to you, and they will keep doing it in the future to you or to other people. As soon as you stop supplying them with whatever they want from you, or even when you are still supplying them, but a better source of supply, another person, appears on the radar, on that day, narcissists will be gone again without leaving a single word of explanation to their partners. So if you don't want to experience ghosting again, if you don't want to be discarded by the same person again, then don't give the ghost the chance to do so. This is entirely in your hands. You are in charge here. Do not give your power away to the ghost. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Let me know what are your experiences of being ghosted, if you have any, and how you have moved on from this traumatic experience. Talk to you soon, and bye.